Ava Harrison, 32 years old, had built a rock-solid career in finance that many admired, but in my father's eyes, Robert Harrison. Those achievements were never enough. Today is our annual family reunion at his estate in Beaverton, Oregon, and my heart feels heavier than ever. I spent every dollar I had saved to buy him a Mercedes S-Class, hoping that this gift would be enough to soothe him and earn a sliver of his approval. No one knows that inside my handbag is an envelope hiding a secret that will shatter all my convictions. Tonight, I will discover why my father has never once praised me, and the truth concealed in that paper will leave me speechless. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching this video from, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to fight to prove your own worth. When I was a child, the Harrison family was praised all over Portland. Lavish homes, expensive cars, and obedient, high-achieving children. But behind those iron gates lay another world, a world where love was traded for perfection. My father, Robert, built a real estate empire from nothing, turning every parcel of land around the Willamette Valley into millions of dollars. He valued success and status above everything else, even the blood ties that bound us. From as early as I can remember, my father was never there to listen to my second-grade stories or watch me perform in school plays. Instead, he was a harsh judge who always whispered that my B+ should have been an A. He scolded me for not being chosen captain of the soccer team, saying that coming in second place was no different from failure. Even when I brought home an academic medal, in his eyes it was only an excuse to point out how I still fell short. My mother, Elizabeth Harrison, was the exact opposite. She was gentle and nurturing, but when my father appeared, she became someone else entirely. She feared his gaze. Whenever she was asked about breakfast the next morning, she would glance at him before answering. When the three of us children faced one of his scoldings, Mom would lower her head, unable to look up and defend me. I only understood their dynamic once I was older and saw her trying to hold back tears after each verbal beating. I have an older brother named Ethan, who is 3 years older than me. From the time he was young, Ethan was always the favorite in my father's eyes. He excelled at football, topped his class academically, and always knew how to choose girlfriends from well-to-do families. After graduating from the University of Oregon, he joined my father's real estate firm, stepping into that world of power far more easily than I ever imagined. Everything seemed to go smoothly for Ethan. He simply did what Dad wanted without having to strive too hard. My younger sister Grace is 2 years younger than me and appears gentle, but she has a rare talent for reading people's emotions. Grace knew exactly when to laugh and when to step back into the shadows to avoid Dad's anger. She became the peacemaker in our family, often making my father smile with a timely joke. On those afternoons when Dad was berating me, Grace would sneak me into her room and whisper, "It's not that bad." Yet inside me loneliness grew, because no one acknowledged me as his daughter. From high school on, I vowed to outshine everyone else to earn even a small measure of recognition. I graduated with honors and won a full scholarship to the University of Montclair, but Dad constantly urged me to attend the University of Oregon, the school he had attended himself. In his eyes, choosing Montclair meant I was disrespecting the family legacy. Whenever I reported a test score, he would point out every odd detail that kept my performance from being perfect. I began working 2 shifts at a coffee shop for extra spending money, while also studying for finance certifications to prove my competence. During my time at Montclair, I slept on a friend's couch to save money, balancing tutoring, coffee shop shifts, and weekend stints as a teller at the local bank to gain experience. But every break between busy semesters meant returning to Beaverton, where Dad would ask why I hadn't landed an internship at a top financial institution in Florida or Miami. His criticism felt like a dagger to my pride. "You're not good enough to be snapped up by a prestigious firm, are you?" After I graduated, my father made a half-hearted offer. "You can work for the family company. At least I can use my influence to help you succeed." I declined with unwavering resolve. I didn't want to be known as the daughter who rode her parents' coattails. I wanted to succeed on my own terms, not because of the Harrison name. So I packed my backpack and left Portland for Miami with 2 suitcases and a fierce desire to prove myself. The early days in Miami were grueling. I slept on my cousin's couch and sent out resumes everywhere, from small banks to major investment firms in the Loop. Finally, I accepted an unpaid internship position at Imperial Capital. My father simply texted, "Let's see how long you last." But I persevered for 8 years, starting as a lowly intern and climbing the ladder to become an analyst, then a senior advisor. Every promotion was a chance to prove to Dad that I was not just Robert Harrison's daughter. Last month, I was promoted to Director of Investment Strategy, the youngest person in Imperial Capital's history to hold that title. My new salary allowed me to purchase my dream apartment in downtown Miami, fully furnished with modern fixtures and a sweeping view of the Miami River. I saved diligently for years to buy Dad a 2025 Mercedes S-Class, a car I believed would change his perspective. I thought that would be the moment to mend our relationship, but little did I know it would also mark the start of my life's greatest storm. Today, as I step into the grand foyer of the Harrison estate, the Mercedes sits in the driveway, gleaming in the summer sun. The laughter of relatives echoes through the elegant halls, but I can still feel my heart sinking. In my vest pocket is the file I recently unearthed from our old storage. An original birth registration from the year I was born. Now I realize I will no longer be the only biological child in Dad's eyes. I take a deep breath, knock on the door, and steel myself to confront the myriad secrets hiding behind the Harrison family's glittering facade. In my mind, this gift will be the key for Dad to finally acknowledge that I am his successful daughter, worthy of his pride. The black Mercedes S-Class, with every luxury Dad once raved about when he saw a friend's car at the golf club, cost nearly a year of my hard-earned income. Now, thinking back, I realize that beaming smile he gave when I handed him the keys was as feeble as my attempt to purchase the unconditional love that a child should naturally receive. That longing has shaped every major turning point in my life. It wasn't that I was truly passionate about numbers or finance, but rather because I believed that if I excelled enough, I could win my father's heart. When I held those keys, I wasn't just giving him a luxury vehicle. I was giving him a chance to love his 32-year-old daughter like he should have all along. The Harrison family reunion takes place each year on the last weekend of June, right around Father's Day. Every year, I painstakingly prepare, choosing an outfit that signals success but isn't over the top, feminine yet not frivolous. I spent 3 straight weeks searching for a form-fitting navy blue dress with a flattering silhouette, paired with elegant gold jewelry and simple but expensive high heels. Even that preparation made me feel foolish, like a naive child repeating elaborate rituals just to hear a thin praise. I kept wondering if the dress and the car could ever fill the void of self-worth that Dad had sowed over more than 3 decades. Memories of past reunions flooded my mind. When I was 16 and won first place in the statewide math competition, Dad said, "You should have focused on public speaking. People are easier to find a mathematician than someone who can communicate." When I graduated from Montclair, with top honors, he shrugged and said, "Finance is just professional gambling in a suit." When I first got promoted at Goldman Sachs, Dad picked up a piece of sushi and mused, "They must have hired you just to meet their diversity quota." This year, I faced something far more complex than his old jabs. 3 months ago, I used a DNA testing service out of curiosity, and the result revealed a horrifying truth. My genetic information did not match the Harrison surname. My heart sank when I saw the initial results. I quietly collected a hair sample from Dad during a recent visit, sent it to a different lab, and when I held the final sealed report, I knew I stood on the brink of an identity crisis. The DNA report sits in my handbag, like a ticking time bomb. I feel both afraid and angry, wondering if my father already knows. Perhaps my constant feeling of alienation over the years could be explained by that answer. Why did his eyes sometimes feel colder toward me than toward my brother or sister? Why was there never a warm embrace or a sincere word of praise for me? The afternoon before the reunion, I drove the new Mercedes to my parents' Beaverton estate, my heart pounding with anxiety. I purposely arrived slightly early, knowing Mom would be out at her flower arranging club. I wanted a private moment, undisturbed to present this peace offering. The iron gates parted and I walked into the courtyard of cherry trees. The mansion stood proud, white paint glowing in the golden sunset. Inside, my father's footsteps echoed before he appeared at the front door. Robert Harrison wore a polo shirt and khakis, moving briskly but still exuding that powerful executive presence. He frowned when he saw me arrive early. "Ava, why are you here so early? The reunion isn't until tomorrow," he said calmly, as if to remind me that everything had been arranged perfectly. I took a deep breath and tried to appear confident. "I wanted to give you your Father's Day gift a bit early, so it could just be you and me without distractions." He looked me up and down, then stepped aside to let me into the garage, where the Mercedes gleamed. I placed the key box on the hood, my heart racing. "You've always said you wanted a car suitable for weekend golf outings," I said, my voice trembling. "I bought this hoping it would please you." He studied the car in silence, then bent down and picked up the key box. "Ava, do you really think a car is enough to change my mind?" he asked, his tone cold yet measured. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay composed. "I just want you to be proud of me once." He stood upright, meeting my gaze. In that moment, the world seemed to freeze. I felt sweat trickle down my back. I had hoped this car would bridge the gap between us, but now the only certainty was that I was being pulled into a new pit of disappointment. Suddenly, my father opened the DNA envelope that I had placed on the desk in the corner of the garage. I saw his hand tremble slightly as he pulled out the result, folded it, and looked straight at me. "Ava," he said, his voice suddenly hoarse, "why have you hidden this from me for so long?" I pressed my hand to my chest, feeling as if my heart was shattering. I don't know how to say this. You are not my biological father." Tears welled in my eyes, but I did not cry. I stood firm, waiting for his response. That moment of silence was taut as a tightened string. Then my father cleared his throat, stepped in front of me, his eyes mixed with shame and guilt. "I have known for a long time," he whispered. I was stunned, my mouth agape. "That result cannot change my love for you," he continued, his voice shaking. I forced a bitter laugh, unsure whether it was reassurance or a new chain. "If you knew, why did you never say a word of confirmation? I have spent my whole life searching for your love, only to realize I will never belong to the Harrison legacy." From deep inside, a wave of anger surged, but I held it back. "I don't need money. I don't need the inheritance. I came here only to have you acknowledge me as your daughter, whether by DNA or by heart." My mother appeared at the garage doorway, looking at both of us in astonishment. "Elizabeth," my father called softly, "did you know?" Mom shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Ava just told me," she said, her voice choked with emotion. The air suddenly became stifling. The 5 Harrison family members standing in the garage, 3 generations shattered by an undeniable truth. I took a step back, tears streaming down my face. "I'm fine," I tried to reassure them, though my heart was breaking. "I don't need anything more than your honesty, Father." He looked at me with a haunted gaze, then bent down and held me tightly. I was caught off guard, feeling the warmth I had longed for. He whispered, "You will always be my daughter, regardless of what the DNA says." For the first time in my life, I saw a tear fall from his eye. That moment reshaped my life. I realized that despite hating him for hiding this from me for more than 3 decades, I still craved the love only he could give. But most importantly, I understood that my worth never depended on genetics or someone else's validation. I had won the battle for my self-respect, not with a pricey Mercedes, but by facing the truth and standing up for myself. The story ended under the warm yellow lights of the garage, where my parents' eyes met mine and the whole family understood that love cannot be bought with money or proven by DNA. I left the Harrison estate not only with a new car, but also with the confidence that I was strong enough to move forward, even if I had to go it alone. My father opened the key box with the polite but indifferent manner he reserved for obligatory gifts. When he noticed the Mercedes logo, surprise flickered across his face. "Is this some kind of joke, Ava?" he asked, his eyes glancing toward the driveway where the new car stood proudly. I led him to the window, where the thin morning mist reflected sunlight onto the car, wanting him to see the gift for himself. His expression lit up momentarily with delight, but then flickered back to cold analysis. "This is far more than necessary, Ava." I swallowed, trying to appear confident. "I just got a significant promotion and wanted to do something special for you." He walked around the car twice as if appraising a potential real estate purchase, running his hand over the smooth paint, asking questions about financing and insurance that felt more like an interrogation than a thank you. Every comment he made tightened my chest, because I had poured my heart and soul into this gift. After test driving the prized machine, he frowned slightly as he noted that the steering wheel felt a bit loose, even though the S-Class is renowned for its precise handling. Instead of parking the car in front as I had hoped, he tucked it neatly into the garage, hiding the gift from visitors. His rushed thank you was immediately undercut by his next remark: "You must be rolling in money to waste it like this." That evening, from my hotel room, I called my best friend Mia Johnson, crying as I recounted my father's coldness. "You know what? Forget him," Mia said with the righteous anger of a friend who had heard my story countless times. "Take the car back. He doesn't deserve it." I shook my head, still clinging to hope that tomorrow, in front of everyone, he would acknowledge my efforts. "If you plan to flaunt the DNA results, don't do it," Mia Johnson advised before hanging up. "Prepare yourself for devastating consequences." I sighed, promising not to touch the envelope, but it lay in my handbag like a nuclear weapon I was both terrified of and unable to discard. Sunday afternoon arrived with the full June sunlight, a sky so clear it seemed nature was trying to hide the pain behind the reunion's veneer. I took the scenic route in my Mercedes, giving myself time to mentally prepare definitive answers for the questions ahead, about my personal life, my career, and the fact that I was still single at 32. Each knot in the steering wheel showed how tense I was, raising the hairs on my arms. The road leading to the Harrison estate remained lined with maple trees. From a distance, I could already see the fleet of luxury cars belonging to relatives and my father's favored business associates, people treated like family. The Mercedes sat on display at the entrance, not in the garage like yesterday, becoming a prize decoration for the gathering. I took a deep breath, adjusted my navy mule dress, smoothed down my hair, and brushed lightly over my makeup. My walk still carried the steely confidence I'd practiced daily in high-pressure boardrooms where banking executives often underestimated women. I was ready to walk through that door, even though I knew behind it might be an emotional storm. Mother opened the door with a warm smile and hugged me. "You look beautiful, Ava," she said. She kissed the top of my head and whispered, "Your father is in the back garden with Claire's group." Her words felt like a weather alert, signaling that everything was in place to follow the old script. Under the high ceilings of the foyer, the crowd packed the room. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and my father's business security team. They mingled as if playing assigned roles, faking laughter, swapping juicy real estate gossip and commenting on last night's game results. No one bothered to notice my trembling hands as I stepped inside. Before I could steady myself, my Aunt Campbell approached with air kisses and a barrage of questions about my love life. "Ava, are you seeing anyone? When are you getting married? How's work in Florida?" I forced a smile and replied, "Everything is fine, Aunt Campbell," knowing that a candid answer about the emptiness in my heart would only make them more bewildered and then move on. Uncle Davis, my father's brother, clapped me on the shoulder with exaggerated force. "Look who's back, our Wall Street wizard." His hearty laugh echoed, but his grip was almost painful, as if to prove he was always there for me, even though he never truly understood my feelings. I just nodded and drifted back, trying to escape the noisy crowd. The moment I had been dreading arrived. The living room doors opened and my father entered with 3 business partners laughing about a multi-million-dollar deal. He walked in with calm steps, exuding the poise of a wealthy owner. His eyes glanced over me, a fleeting look as if weighing me, before he raised his hand in a hearty greeting. "Hello, everyone. We're here to enjoy a wonderful afternoon." The first moments with my father were always the same. A perfunctory nod, a courteous greeting that never acknowledged family affection. I could hear my heart pounding as I wondered if today, before this whole group, would be the moment he changed. But I also knew all too well that behind those dark sunglasses, his feelings for me were concealed more skillfully than any other family secret. I moved back into a corner of the room and watched a familiar scene unfold. Every eye was fixed on my father, who occupied the center of attention like a king on his throne. A resolve ignited within me. If he uttered not one kind word, I would have no choice but to stand up, cease playing the good daughter role, and use that DNA envelope as a final blow. Yet I questioned whether I was truly ready for such a crisis. I stepped forward, my voice firmer than natural. "Father, I have something to share before we begin." Instantly, the room went silent. My father jerked his head up, his expression startled. My mother held her breath, and Aunt Campbell's jaw dropped. All eyes turned to me. I quietly retrieved the DNA envelope from my pocket, my hands trembling as I placed it on the table. A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. I lifted my gaze to my father, my eyes reddened. "I have spent my life striving to make you proud, but there is one thing you need to know. I am not your biological daughter." Everyone sprang to their feet as if struck by lightning. Aunt Campbell burst into tears. "Ava, what are you saying?" My father remained silent, his suit suddenly feeling heavy on his shoulders. My mother hurriedly wiped away tears, her voice choking. "Oh, sweetheart, why did you keep this secret so long?" I cut in. 3 months ago, a DNA test gave me the answer I have longed for and feared for so many years. But I am not asking you to repudiate me. I just need you to recognize me as your daughter in your heart. The DNA result is nothing more than a piece of paper. The room seemed to collapse inward. My father lifted his head, his eyes filled with pain. He shuffled forward and gently laid a hand on my trembling shoulder. A tear slid down his cheek, my first glimpse of him crying. "Ava, why did you not tell me sooner?" he whispered. I swallowed my pain to reply. "I was afraid, but today I had to speak. I have spent a lifetime fighting for your love." Silence reigned, broken only by the pounding of my own heart. He embraced me tightly, his voice catching. "You will always be my daughter, no matter what the DNA says." For the first time in my life, I felt genuine warmth from my father. The atmosphere shifted. Surprised glances turned into understanding looks. My mother stepped forward, taking my hand and then my father's, forming a warm circle in the elegant living room. In that moment, I realized I had won, not with an expensive Mercedes or the splendor of this reunion, but by facing the truth and letting go of my insecurities. I stood tall, my eyes shining with newfound pride. I am Ava Harrison, a daughter strong enough to give and receive genuine love. My father's gaze swept the room, nodding at familiar faces before settling on me. For a fleeting second, his look felt like recognition of an invisible guest. His lips tightened as if he were briefly disoriented. Then he turned away and followed my mother, whispering something to her. I, his daughter, stood there with the gift that represented more than a year's worth of many people's incomes, still not enough for him to offer a warm familial greeting. I forced myself to appear composed, stepping over to Olivia, my cousin who was chatting about medical school residence in Orlando. I smiled and nodded, complimenting her achievements, but the warmth in my heart immediately cooled at the sense of being cast aside. Even a passing glance was enough to remind me to maintain my poise, yet the pain smoldered deep within. Mom appeared beside me, placing a gentle hand on my arm. "Sweetheart, your father mentioned you gave him that new car. How generous of you," she said, her eyes reflecting a blend of worry and admiration. Her gentle voice rippled through a room full of insincere chatter. "He wants you to greet the Stevenson family. They just returned from a financial conference in Miami and are eager to hear your insights," Mom continued. That was Mom's strategy, always creating social buffers, pushing me to network with people whom natural family bonds should have drawn me closer to. My brother Ethan appeared at that moment, stepping in with confident grace and a well-tailored suit. His wife Rebecca stood beside him, radiating a bright smile, their 2 young children clinging to them. Ethan was embraced by our father, who patted him on the back with affectionate firmness, something I had spent decades trying to earn. "Dad, this car is awesome. When did you decide to upgrade?" Ethan asked, his voice full of enthusiasm. My father patted his son's shoulder and replied with a hearty smile, "Sometimes one must treat oneself, son." Not a single word was uttered about me or the gift, as if I was a mere bystander watching from the sidelines. Grace suddenly appeared, pulling me into a tight hug. "I heard about your promotion, Ava. That's amazing," she whispered, using the childhood nickname only the 2 of us shared. Her genuine smile felt like a salve on my wound, but it also reminded me of the depth of the divide between my father and me. I watched the servers carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres. Fresh seafood and toasted bread perfumed the air. Through the large glass doors I saw my father leading his partners out onto the lawn, his face glowing as he talked about the Mercedes and enthusiastically opened the door to show off its luxurious features. In front of those guests he exuded a pride he had never shown me. "All morning he's been fixated on that car," Grace murmured in my ear, 2 hands clutching her glass of wine. "He's taken 3 of his closest friends out for private test drives already. Mom says gifting him a car was your generous act, Ava." I took a sip, the wine's bitterness stinging my throat. "I didn't give the car out of generosity," I confessed inwardly. "I only wanted him to see how successful I am, to recognize that I deserve his attention." Grace squeezed my shoulder in empathy. "It's not a bad gesture, just unrealistic for him. He can't understand or accept you the way you need." Her words struck me like a hammer, not because I was unaware of the truth, but because hearing it spoken aloud made the weight in my chest grow even heavier. The DNA envelope in my pocket felt like a ticking bomb, aching to explode, yet I feared its destructive power. Now, the prelude to the main meal passed exactly as it had for years. One by one, everyone moved into the formal living room, furnished with classic, slightly stiff furniture, beige walls, and oil paintings that Mother had meticulously selected. Only in that space was Father permitted to express his opinions. Whether a tiny compliment or a cold decree, I stood quietly by the door, listening to the shuffle of anxious footsteps. In my mind, Mom's earlier words echoed, "Steady success isn't always enough to satisfy a man's pride." Today, I wanted to surpass the bounds of a fruitless effort. In that moment, I suddenly remembered past dinners. When I was 10 and received an academic achievement certificate, Father never cracked a genuine smile. When, at 18, I graduated from college with top honors, he only criticized my choice of a non-stable field. All those accumulated desires, those futile compliments, they clustered around me in this very moment. I drew a deep breath and turned to Mother. She nodded, her eyes shining with encouragement. Now all eyes focused on me. This was the moment to decide, continue playing the good daughter, or break free by revealing the truth I held in my hands. My mind spiraled into chaos. If I revealed the DNA envelope, my father's social image would collapse, but the family would be torn apart. If I remained silent, this extravagant gift would remain nothing more than a facade masking my pain. The parlor fell completely silent, awaiting my decision, as if no one knew what was about to happen. I surveyed the room. Intricately carved armchairs, a long, glossy walnut table, a vibrant Persian rug spread beneath my feet. Everything radiated authority and protocol. But in my heart, a fierce voice shattered the pretense. "Ava, live your truth. With shaking hands, I pulled the DNA envelope from my pocket. Each second felt as heavy as a boulder. Everyone's gaze struck me like lightning, but I knew I could not turn back. I took a deep breath, prepared to tear down the wall the Harrison family had built over so many years, and to see whether any genuine familial affection still remained in their hearts. I found a seat by the window, slightly apart from the main conversation circle. I lifted my wine glass for a second sip, observing everyone like an anthropologist at a banquet. Knowing I did not share their blood made the divide feel even more pronounced. My brother Ethan, the center of attention, enthusiastically described the purchase of an old shopping center in downtown Miami and his plans to convert it into luxury apartments. The project seemed risky at first to many partners, but I saw potential others overlooked, Ethan bragged, while Father nodded in pride. "That's the Harrison instinct," Father interjected with enthusiasm, "seeing opportunity where others see only failure. That's in our blood." His excitement pressed down on me like the DNA envelope in my pocket. When the conversation shifted toward me, I tried to respond calmly. Uncle Davis asked gently, "Ava, I heard you were just promoted. Director of Investment Strategy, right? Impressive." I nodded, my gaze lingering as if searching for words. Before I could answer, Father cut me off. "That's just a stepping stone. Finance is always volatile, nothing stable there. Real estate is the only truly secure field." He turned to Ethan and continued discussing how to preserve wealth across generations. His words struck me like I had anticipated. No matter how successful I became, my chosen path would always be undervalued. I forced myself to maintain a professional demeanor, as if addressing a tough client. "The risk assessment model I developed helped the firm beat its targets by 22% during the recent market upheaval," I said in a steady voice. A tense silence followed, and then Father waved his hand dismissively, as if brushing aside my presentation. "Those are just numbers on paper. When a real crisis hits, let's see if that still matters." Those words crushed my pride. I excused myself from the parlor to pour another glass of wine and encountered Grace as she entered from the backyard. "Don't let his words get to you," Grace whispered, squeezing my hand. "I heard about your model from Uncle Kevin, our cousin in finance. It's truly groundbreaking." Her sincere praise warmed me and deepened the pain, because I still longed for my father's approval. When I stepped into the dining room, Father's voice drifted from the adjacent study, the door slightly ajar. "The car? This is certainly a level up from the old one," Father said loudly to Andrew Thompson, my father's longtime rival but occasional business associate. "You've worked hard and built your success from scratch, so you deserve luxury," Andrew replied with a mocking tone. "Mr. Harrison, you're so humble. Ava told me she bought it for you after her promotion in Florida. Sounds like she's making quite a name for herself." I froze when I heard Father say, "Yes, that girl always craves attention. In reality, her success isn't her own. I provided her everything, a private school education, the right college connections, the business knowledge I taught her. That car is just her way of showing she finally learned what I taught her." That statement felt like a slap to my face, crushing all the pride and effort I had poured into my achievements. My heart shattered, my hand trembling so badly the wine glass nearly slipped from my grasp, but inside a wildfire erupted. I could not remain silent any longer. My father's dismissal of my hard work and attributing it solely to his favoritism made me realize I was imprisoned by outdated family prejudices. I spun on my heel, flung the study door open, and the dining room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. "Father," I said, my voice quavering but determined, "I am tired of excuses claiming my achievements came from family leverage." I raised the DNA envelope from my pocket, holding it in the center of the room. "You say I have everything because of you, but here is my truth. I do not share the Harrison bloodline." The room held its breath. Father turned away, his face paling. Heavy sighs echoed, then he spoke. "Ava, give that to your mother." Mother rushed forward and took the envelope, but I readied myself to pull it back. "No, That time has passed. This is when the family needs to know I have lived in the darkness you created for 32 years. Ethan's voice caught and he could not speak. I continued, my voice echoing through the silent room. You never allowed me to be your daughter because in your eyes I was a mistake. My hard work, my passion, my love, everything I achieved you dismissed as I set her up for success. I swallowed hard and emphasized, today I break not only this facade but free myself. Father rose, his trembling hand raised, but no one dared to intervene. What are you doing, Ava? He asked, his voice faltering. I inhaled deeply, my gaze unwavering. I'm showing you that my worth is not something you can give or take away. No matter how you attribute my success, I stand on my own 2 feet. The room remained silent, each person hearing their own heartbeat. Ethan turned his back and Rebecca rushed out, carrying their children to the backyard. Mother sank into a chair, her shoulders trembling in waves. Only Grace stepped forward and hugged me tightly. I knew there was no turning back. In an instant, Father bowed his head, as if listening to his daughter for the first time. Ava, he murmured, I have failed you. I looked into his eyes and said softly, No apologies, Father. I have already forgiven myself. I spun on my heel and walked away, leaving my parents and siblings wrapped in a whirlwind of emotions. Each step echoed on the polished wood floor, each step affirming my own freedom, no longer bound by the Harrison shadow. Beyond the glass doors, the late afternoon sun glinted off the shiny black Mercedes, reminding me that although I once used it to win favor, I am now the one rewriting my destiny. This Harrison family reunion ended unlike any before, no more forced politeness, only glaring truth. And I knew, despite the challenges ahead, I would walk forward on my own strong legs. Father continued, his voice smug as he recounted how he had always demanded that I push myself harder than my siblings because, in his view, the middle daughter needed the strictest discipline. The story of how he lifted me up through each rung of success became a talking point at the table, even as he denied my genuine contributions. Down the hallway I slipped away quietly, my anger morphing into a cold fury that sharpened my clarity. At that moment Ethan stopped me. He was composed, but his eyes held an unusual seriousness. Ava, can I talk to you for a moment? He led me to a quiet corner near Mother's prized orchid. Father said you've been asking Mother a lot about her college years. What exactly are you trying to find out? His direct question surprised me, because I had only been subtly probing Mother about her past, but I had tried to mask my expression. I just want to understand Mother better, I answered diplomatically, my eyes flicking to Ethan's reflection under the dim glow of the lantern above. In his gaze, I saw the DNA envelope's proof that I was an outsider. Women of Mother's generation didn't have many opportunities to prove themselves before marriage and motherhood. Ethan studied me with the same analytical look I knew Father used, a gaze that made me feel like a specimen under examination. Listen, he said, whatever you're planning, whether a lavish gift or digging into the past, stop. This family has its own order, a harmony you're not meant to disrupt in your own way. His note of arrogance stung me. I realized he had become an echo of Father's toxic teachings. Before I could retort, my Aunt Olivia approached, sensing the tension. Are you all right? Aunt Caroline is looking for you. Dinner is about to be served. Olivia's concerned face softened when I forced a polite smile. Ethan put on a friendly grin, attempting to maintain normalcy. Just catching up with my sister, nothing important. Olivia tapped my shoulder and whispered, My mother and I always said your father treats favoritism like an Olympic sport. He never lets it go, win or lose. But your achievements are yours alone, truly. Her words felt like a warm breeze in the storm, making me question why I had ever doubted my own abilities. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath to hold back the emotion welling up inside me. Dinner was about to begin, and the bell that signaled guests to the table sounded like a clarion signaling that this family drama would continue. with me in the starring role of this stifling family play. I walked slowly toward the foyer, fingers brushing against the edge of the DNA envelope, contemplating the unavoidable aftermath. Part of me wanted to run away right then, escape the family spectacle of lies to protect myself from further wounds, but another part, the cruelest part, would stay, determined to witness everything play out fully and finally confront the root of a lifetime of rejection. I checked the envelope one last time to ensure the result remained safely sealed. Then I squared my shoulders and stepped into the dining room, resolute that tonight's performance would unveil raw, unvarnished truth. The opulent dining room, with its long rosewood table set for 24 guests, radiated cold formality, a perfect illustration of the Harrison family, magnificent yet devoid of warmth. Portraits of ancestors lined the walls, their stern gazes condemning me with each step I took. The grand rosewood table was lavishly set with crystal glassware and gold-trimmed china, all placed upon a backdrop of beige walls, an environment so cold and rigid. At the table's center stood a vase of fresh flowers, every rose and hydrangea balanced symmetrically to emphasize the flawless facade my father always pursued. My mind churned in chaos. If I revealed the DNA envelope, Father's social reputation would collapse, but the family would shatter. If I stayed silent, this lavish gift would only be a facade masking my pain. The parlor fell utterly silent, waiting for my choice, as if no one knew what was about to happen. I scanned the room. Exquisitely carved armchairs, the long, glossy walnut table, and the vibrant Persian rug underfoot, everything exuded control and protocol, but in my heart, a fierce voice pierced the false calm. "Ava, be true to yourself." With trembling hands, I lifted the DNA envelope from my pocket. Each second felt as heavy as a boulder. Everyone's gaze struck me like lightning, yet I knew I could not turn away. I drew a deep breath, ready to tear down the wall the Harrison family had built over so many years, and see if any genuine familial affection remained. I found a seat by the window, slightly apart from the main circle of conversation. I raised my glass for a second sip of wine and watched everyone as though I were an anthropologist at a banquet. Knowing I did not share their bloodline made the distance between us feel even more pronounced. Ethan, my brother, remained the center of attention, enthusiastically describing his purchase of an old shopping center in downtown Miami and his plans to convert it into luxury apartments. The project initially seemed risky to many partners, but I saw potential they overlooked, Ethan boasted, and Father nodded proudly. "That's the Harrison instinct," Father interjected, his voice full of excitement. "Seeing opportunity where others only see failure? That's in our blood." His enthusiasm pressed down on me, like the DNA envelope in my pocket. When the conversation turned to me, I forced myself to remain calm. Uncle Davis quietly asked, "Ava, I heard you were just promoted, Director of Investment Strategy, right? Impressive." I nodded, my eyes lingering as though searching for words. Before I could answer, Father cut me off. "That's only a stepping stone. Finance is always volatile, nothing stable there. Real estate is the only truly secure field." He turned to Ethan and continued discussing how to preserve wealth across generations. His words stung, as I had feared. No matter how successful I became, my chosen path would always be devalued. I forced myself to maintain a professional demeanor, as though presenting to a demanding client. "The risk assessment model I developed helped the firm beat its targets by 22% during the recent market fluctuation," I said in a steady voice. A tense silence followed, and then Father waved his hand dismissively, as though brushing aside my presentation. "Those are just numbers on paper. When a real crisis hits, let's see if it still matters." His words crushed my pride. I excused myself from the parlor to pour another glass of wine and encountered Grace as she entered from the backyard. "Don't let his words affect you, sis," Grace whispered, gripping my hand tightly. "I heard about your model from Cousin Kevin. He's in finance. It's truly groundbreaking." Her sincere praise warmed me and deepened my pain, because I still longed for Father's approval. When I entered the dining room, Father's voice drifted out from the adjacent study, the door slightly ajar. "The car? This is definitely a step up from the old one," Father said loudly to Andrew Thompson, my father's longtime rival but occasional business associate. "You have worked hard and built your success from scratch, so you deserve luxury." Andrew replied with a sarcastic tone. "Mr. Harrison, you're so modest. Ava told me she bought it for you after her promotion in Florida. Sounds like she's made quite a name for herself." I froze when I heard Father say, "Yes, that girl always craves attention. In reality, her success is not truly her own. I provided her with everything: a private school education, the right college connections, the business knowledge I taught her. That car is just her way of showing she finally learned what I taught her." That statement felt like a slap to my face, crushing all the pride and effort I had poured into my achievements. My heart shattered, my hand trembling so much that the wine glass nearly slipped from my grasp. But inside, a fierce fire erupted. I could not remain silent any longer. Father's denial of my hard work and attributing my accomplishments solely to his favoritism made me realize I was imprisoned by old family prejudices. I spun on my heel and flung the study door open. The dining room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. "Father," I said, my voice quavering but determined, "I am tired of excuses claiming my achievements came from family leverage." I raised the DNA envelope in the center of the room. "You say I have everything because of you, but here is the truth. I do not share the Harrison bloodline." The room held its breath. Father turned away, his face paling. Heavy sighs echoed, then he spoke. "Ava, give that to your mother." Mother rushed forward and took the envelope, but I braced myself to take it back. "No, that time has passed. This is when the family needs to know I have lived in the darkness you created for 32 years. Tears streamed down Mother's face. Ethan's voice caught and he could not speak. Continued, my words echoing. "You never allowed me to be your daughter because, in your eyes, I was a mistake. My hard work, my passion, my love. Everything I achieved you dismissed as just my doing." I swallowed hard and emphasized, "Today I break not only this facade but also free myself." Father rose, his hand trembling as he raised it, but no one dared intervene. "What are you doing, Ava?" he asked, his voice faltering. I took a deep breath, my gaze unwavering. "I am showing you that my worth is not something you can give or take away. No matter how you attribute my success, I stand on my own 2 feet." The room remained silent, each person hearing their own heartbeat. Ethan turned away, and Rebecca hurriedly took the children to the backyard. Mother sank into a chair, her shoulders trembling. Only Grace stepped forward and embraced me tightly. I knew there was no turning back. In an instant, Father bowed his head, as if listening to his daughter for the first time. "Ava," he murmured, "I have failed you." I met his eyes and said quietly, "No apologies, Father, I have already forgiven myself." I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving my parents and siblings in a whirlwind of emotion. Each step I took on the polished wood floor affirmed my own freedom, no longer bound by the Harrison legacy. Outside the glass doors, the late afternoon sun glinted off the shiny black Mercedes, reminding me that although I once used it to win favor, I am now the one rewriting my own destiny. This Harrison family reunion ended unlike any before. No more forced politeness, only raw, unvarnished truth. And I knew, despite the challenges ahead, I would walk forward on my own strong legs. Father continued, his voice self-satisfied as he recounted how he had always demanded that I work harder than my siblings because, in his view, the middle daughter required the strictest discipline. The tale of how he lifted me up through each rung of success became a dining table strategy, even as he denied my genuine contributions. In the hallway, I quietly retreated, my anger transforming into a cold fury that made me feel more awake than ever. At that moment, Ethan intercepted me. He was composed, but his eyes held an unusual seriousness. "Ava, can we talk for a moment?" He led me to a quiet corner near Mother's prized orchid. "Father said you've been asking Mother a lot about her college years. What exactly are you trying to find out?" His direct question surprised me, because I had only been subtly probing Mother about her past, trying to hide my expression. "I just want to understand Mother better," I replied diplomatically, my eyes flicking to Ethan's reflection under the lantern's dim glow. In his gaze, I saw the DNA envelope's proof that I was an outsider. Women of Mother's generation didn't have many opportunities to prove themselves before marriage and children. Ethan studied me with Father's analytical gaze, a look that made me feel like a specimen under examination. "Listen," he said, "whatever you're planning, whether a lavish gift or digging up the past, stop. This family has its own order, a harmony that you are not meant to disrupt." His arrogance stung me. I realized he had become an echo of Father's toxic teachings. Before I could respond, my cousin Olivia approached, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right? Aunt Caroline is looking for you. Dinner is about to be served." Olivia's concerned face softened when I forced a polite smile. Ethan put on a friendly grin, attempting normalcy. "Just catching up with my sister, nothing important." Olivia tapped my shoulder and whispered, "Mother and I always said your father treats favoritism like an Olympic sport. He never lets it go, win or lose. But your accomplishments are yours alone, truly." Her words felt like a warm breeze amid the storm, making me question why I had ever doubted my own abilities. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath to hold back tears. Dinner was about to begin, and the bell signaling guests to the table felt like a cue that this family drama would continue. With me as the lead in a suffocating play, I walked slowly toward the foyer, fingers grazing the edge of the DNA envelope, contemplating the inevitable fallout. Part of me wanted to run away, escape this family theater of lies and protect myself from further wounds, but another part, the cruelest part, insisted I stay, witness everything in full, and finally confront the root of a lifetime of rejection. I checked the envelope one last time to ensure the result remained securely sealed. Then I squared my shoulders and stepped into the dining room, determined that tonight's performance would expose raw, unfiltered truth. The opulent dining room, with its long rosewood table seating 24 guests, radiated cold formality. A perfect illustration of the Harrison family, grand yet devoid of warmth. Generations of ancestors stared down from portraits on the walls, their stern eyes judging me with every step. The grand rosewood table was lavishly set with crystal glassware and gold-trimmed china, all placed against an austere beige backdrop. At the center of the table was a vase of fresh flowers, each rose and hydrangea precisely arranged to emphasize the flawless exterior Father always demanded. Between dozens of seats, the folded place card with elegant calligraphy rested directly in front of mine. My name, Ava Harrison, appeared on the delicate card, positioned a step down from the cards nearest my father, places reserved for Ethan and his family. To my left sat Lucas Reed, my cousin Olivia's husband, with whom I had spoken exactly twice, and to my right was one of Father's youngest partners, Nathan Brooks, who lingered in a corner throughout the dinner, just close enough to eavesdrop, but distant enough to avoid meaningful conversation. Ethan and his family dominated the seats closest to Father, with his wife Rebecca beaming beside their 2 children who were busy sketching in their drawing pads. When my eyes caught Grace, my younger sister, she sat next to her husband, her chair precisely placed between center and the end of the table, as though an invisible barrier separated the inner circle from the less important members. Mother Elizabeth sat at the head of the table across from Father, symbolizing her role, equal in title but separated by half the length of the table, both connected and isolated. When the first appetizer was served, the precision of the staff reminded me of how Father directed his business teams. Scallops seared to golden perfection on a bed of fresh microgreens were placed before each person simultaneously, so expertly that I almost forgot I was waiting as well. In that fleeting moment, I felt the chill in the air. Everyone savored the flavor, lifting their glasses of crisp white wine, yet their eyes flicked around as if tracking every reaction. Father rose, holding his wineglass, and a single glance from him silenced the entire table. His voice, honed by years of practice, rang out. "Welcome, family and friends, to the Harrison family's annual reunion." Each word felt carefully scripted, delivered without a hint of misstep. He proceeded to praise his own achievements, emphasizing how he had built a real estate empire throughout the Willamette Valley, but in my mind I flashed back to the days I stood in the background, listening as he compared my accomplishments to the limits he set for me. The word pride poured from his mouth as he turned to Ethan, who gave the perfect nod, one I had seen 100 times during my childhood. Then Father glanced at Grace, who offered a genuine smile before deliberately stepping past me, as though I were just another decorative element. His gaze lingered briefly on Claire's table nearby, the business partners from Portland, emphasizing, when surrounded by success, we absorb even more success. A gentle clink of glasses echoed as Father raised his toast to Ethan's project, a modern condominium complex in Miami. Next came praise for Grace's new role on the Beaverton Charitable Board. Finally, he paused to look at me with a pointed glance. Remember, success comes from proven paths, rather than wasting time fighting tradition. His words echoed like a psychological blow, reminding me that I was merely a discordant note in the perfect symphony he conducted. The dinner gradually progressed to the 5 main courses, each introduced with meticulous detail. Father smoothly steered the conversation to real estate markets, local politics, and occasionally sports, topics he used to extol Ethan, who had once played on his high school football team. When Mother gently brought up my recent promotion in Florida, Father interjected. "Speaking of financial markets, Anthony Miller, do you think the Fed's expected interest rate hike will affect international investment flows?" In that moment, Mother could only force a smile and recede into the background as Father deftly diminished what little joy I had. When the Elijah Salmon course was served, Father once again targeted me with pointed questions. "Ava's firm primarily invests domestically, correct? That's limited while there are opportunities worldwide. Or, I heard Ava secured an Ethanson account at last year's charity gala? Lucky she had Ethan's introduction, right?" Each remark implied my accomplishments were owed to family favoritism, erasing the sweat I shed on Wall Street. I composed myself, maintaining the calm professionalism I adopted when presenting to a board of directors. "Father, my international risk assessment model has been widely adopted, and the Ethanson account came from an independent pitch competition, not any introduction." My words were carefully measured, sufficient to rebut, without igniting chaos at the table. But I caught Grace's empathetic gaze each time I reiterated that achievement. She began to understand how I struggled to assert myself. When the main course, beef Wellington, arrived, its rich aroma dominated the room, giving me a brief moment to breathe. The tender beef filling wrapped in a crisp pastry, topped with a handcrafted mushroom sauce, made me hold my breath, not from savoring the flavor, but because I needed to restrain the emotions surging within me. In the candlelight flickering across the table, I scanned the scene. The crisp white tablecloth, the gleaming silver utensils, everything arranged perfectly to showcase wealth. Yet each whispered comment in my ear underscored a truth. This perfection only masked the barren core of familial affection. I set down my spoon, finally deciding it was time to end the performance by revealing the truth. I stood, clutching the DNA envelope in my hand, and looked directly at my father. Sounds of cutlery dropping echoed, and all eyes turned to me. "Father," I said, my voice ringing with determination, "I want to say a few words before we continue dinner." Father furrowed his brow, his eyes filled with surprise, astonished that I had finally defeated the disdain he had worn like a collar for decades. The dining room fell utterly silent, only the sound of my racing heart filling the space. I offered a thin smile and opened the DNA envelope on the table. I have proven myself to society, but perhaps the family cares less about that. Here is the truth. I am not of the Harrison blood, there is no doubt. You owe me an explanation." The room buzzed with astonishment, and I knew this moment would permanently change all our lives. Father continued pouring a glass of premium red wine, his face flushing and his speech slurring slightly. Mother, Elizabeth Harrison, kept glancing at him with worried eyes, as though anticipating the consequences of his drinking. After a few more sips, his voice echoed the words my brother James had whispered while draping an arm around him, words that earned only a wave of dismissive disdain. When dessert and coffee were brought out, Father leaned toward Mrs. Clare, Andrew Thompson's wife, my father's longtime associate, and laughed. "I hear Ava is still single? She's young, beautiful, and accomplished, but the guys in Florida must be terrified of her." Mrs. Clare offered a strained smile, attempting consolation. Before I could think of a polite response, Father interjected, swirling his glass of bourbon. "Ava always focuses on proving something instead of building something lasting. Some people chase fame to fill other voids. The family requires compromise, and Harrison women know that better than she does." His words pierced my heart like a well-aimed arrow. Mother drew in a deep breath, her gaze sharper than usual. "Robert, may I say something?" she began, her voice firm. He continued as though he hadn't heard her. "Perhaps Ava should focus on the suitors Father has arranged for her over the years instead of deriding them as boring. Then, maybe she wouldn't be lonely as she approaches 30. Every word my mother spoke was immediately dismissed by Father, as though this were just another family performance he had rehearsed too many times. A surge of anger welled up inside me, so strong I wanted to scream, but I forced it down, holding back tears of rage. I took a sip of water, trying to hide my emotion. "I truly appreciate the concern from both Father and Mother," I said evenly, employing every negotiation technique I had learned. As Father always emphasizes, the Harrison family is results-driven, and my achievements speak for themselves. The global risk assessment model I developed helped the firm exceed its targets by 22% last quarter, and the Ethinson account came entirely from an independent pitch competition. There was no favoritism involved. The entire table fell silent. Only the sound of spoons lightly tapping plates remained. Relatives who had witnessed scenes like this years ago focused intently on their dessert plates, while Father's business associates suddenly took great interest in the ceiling's decorative details. I felt the pressure tighten around my chest, cold sweat trickling down my back. The DNA envelope in my pocket trembled, holding everything I had waited 32 years to reveal. I understood that if I continued to endure this, my life would become a string of self-destructive days. As the servers cleared the dessert plates, I realized I needed to end this now. Father set down his coffee cup, leaning forward from the end chair. He pushed the chair back, a signal that those present knew meant it was time for his unexpected address, a tradition he upheld each year at the Harrison reunion. The click of his shoes on the polished floor sounded sharply, drawing everyone's gaze to him. He stood, brandy glass in hand, his face radiating an authority he had long honed. "While we sit together at this table, I always feel proud of what the Harrison family has built, but there are some things we must remind ourselves of each year." His voice echoed throughout the room, and I gathered my courage, standing quietly, determination reflecting in my eyes. I knew I was prepared to claim this final moment of enlightenment. Before we dispersed to the garden for the annual family portrait, Father slowly rose and spoke, his voice commanding, as though he truly controlled the entire room. "First, I want to express my pride in everything the Harrison family is creating together." He raised his hand broadly, including the business associates as honorary members of the dynasty he had established. "The family is like a business. It requires vision, leadership, and participants who understand their roles to achieve collective success." His eyes swept the table, connecting with everyone, though in reality he did not truly look anyone directly in the eye. Looking around this table, I am even more grateful to the children who have made tremendous contributions to the Harrison legacy. He turned to Ethan and raised his glass lightly. Ethan, you make me and the entire Portland real estate community proud. The Riverside project in Miami clearly demonstrates the bold vision you pursue. You not only grasped the lessons I taught you, you have elevated them to a new level. Ethan gave a modest nod and a self-satisfied smile, proof that he had achieved the approval Father desired. Father continued, his gaze warming as it landed on Grace. Grace, you have shown remarkable care in balancing family responsibilities with community service. Your project at the Oregon Children's Hospital brought renown to them and provided better treatment opportunities for many children. Your mother and I are immensely proud of you and of the value you are adding to our family. Grace smiled. Genuine but shy under the bright lights, she was always more comfortable encouraging others to shine than seeking the spotlight herself. I held my breath, bracing for what would come next. In my heart, a conflict raged. The empty space I longed to hear my name, or at least see a single approving glance, yet I felt entirely invisible. But what came next was even worse than silence. Father pivoted, his eyes narrowing, glinting with calculation. When I think about my children's achievements, he continued, his voice dropping, I realize the concept of success can be widely misunderstood. Some believe that passing the family legacy from one generation to the next demonstrates compassion, but in reality it presages the battles we will face. He lifted his brandy glass and sipped slowly, waiting for a moment of silence. I am proud of all my children. He paused for a few seconds. My grip on the table tightened as if to secure myself. Then he added in a low voice, except for one child sitting here. That phrase struck me like a dagger through my heart. The dining room plunged into a horrifying hush. Murmurs of disbelief and shock spread. Nervous laughter broke out unevenly. Most people assumed it was an inside joke, not realizing that this was a merciless public condemnation. My cheeks burned, then turned ice cold. Every gaze, mother's, Ethan's, Grace's, the aunts and uncles, even the business partners, fixed on me with surprise, awkward pity, and then a dark curiosity. Father continued as though describing the weather. Some people measure success by title, salary, or reported figures. That is a superficial kind of achievement, beautiful on paper but lacking depth. He paused, a mocking smile flickering across his cheekbones. True success comes when we preserve family tradition, building on the foundation already laid, instead of constantly proving individual worth, which only sacrifices collective strength. His words were vague, but the target was unmistakable, me, the only child unwilling to accept Harrison tradition and the ambitions of a family built on land, money, and reputation. Mother went pale, her fingers twisting the napkin, her eyes brimming with sorrow. Ethan gave a smug smile, pleased that Father's magic touch had worked again. Grace braced herself, torn between sympathy for me and fear of the public spectacle Father had orchestrated. My cousin Olivia hastily reached for my hand to comfort me, as though to say, I understand, but don't make a scene. I managed a nod, unable to focus on her gesture. In my mind there was only one truth. My father had just declared that in his eyes, I was not truly part of this family. By his words, I was confirmed as an outcast. My fragile hope that the DNA envelope would instantly change everything shattered. I closed my eyes, trying to hold back the pain. Everything felt suspended. The white tablecloth like a cage, the gleaming chairs, the sparkling chandelier, all became a lifeless fortress, trapping me in a whirlwind of shattered emotions. At that moment, I knew I had to make my final decision. I would not let them erase me again. I locked eyes with Mother through the tangled emotions in the room. Then everything snapped into motion. I stood, moved resolutely to the center of the room, my heart shattering. I raised the DNA envelope high, my voice trembling but clear. "Father, here is the truth. I am not of the Harrison bloodline." The soft clink of glass came as people leaned in, no more pretense or distance. "I am not the failure you claimed, and I do not exist merely to uphold family tradition." Mother broke down, tears streaming, while Ethan recoiled and Grace turned away, quietly weeping. All eyes turned to Father, once projecting undeniable power, now faltering amidst a stunned crowd. The dining room fell into a deathly stillness. Only the sound of my rattling breath and pounding heart remained. I set the envelope down on the table, turned my back, and walked quickly out of the dining room. Behind me, Father still held his brandy glass, his eyes a mix of worry and regret. "Ava?" Mother's voice cracked with anguish, but I did not look back. Outside, the black Mercedes glittered under the garden lights, exuding that same cold luxury. I approached it and placed my hand on the DNA test results. The very paper that had given me the courage to expose the secret. A soft nighttime breeze drifted through, like a final release. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and knew that a new journey had begun. The journey to claim my own worth, no longer bound by the Harrison family's oppressive order. For those moments I stood frozen, feeling each wave of shame wash over me, my face flushed, my throat tightening, and my heart pounding so fast I thought I would faint. Each breath stretched on forever, pulling me back to childhood memories of painful exposure every time Father humiliated me in public, every moment I was forced to remain silent at a table full of indifferent faces. Images from my youth flashed through my mind, the time Father sneered when he saw me receive a statewide academic medal, how my small business idea before the family was dismissed as nonsense, and that moment when I quietly packed my bags and left Portland to build my own life in Miami. Each of those seconds was a painful reminder that, in his eyes, I was always the lacking child, unworthy to bear the Harrison name. But as the muffled laughter of the remaining guests seeped through, and Father wrapped up his speech with hollow words about family unity, something inside me shifted. The final thread tying the good little daughter, who waited for pitying praise, to the woman who recognizes her own worth, snapped. I realized the DNA envelope was no longer a burden of honor to conceal, but a key to shatter the cage that had imprisoned me for 32 years. Not premeditated but propelled by some invisible force, I rose from my seat. The way I stood, relaxed yet resolute, paused every conversation mid-sentence as all eyes turned to me, ranging from surprise to suspicion. The champagne flute I still held remained untouched on the table, a silent signal that I refused to participate in this perfunctory celebration any longer. I smoothed the navy moon dress, astonishing myself at how calm I felt. My chest felt light, as if I had just escaped a storm to enter a haven of peace. I inhaled deeply, my voice steady, as though delivering a practiced presentation to a boardroom full of skeptical executives. "Thank you, Father, for that illuminating speech," I began, like a woman finding the final words to confront the world that had buried her. "I have spent 32 years trying to earn your approval," I continued, my gaze sweeping across the faces. Mother's eyes wide with shock, Father's stupefied expression realizing the events were not following his script. "I now understand why the atmosphere in that room suddenly grew so heavy, because you had already prepared your scorn for me." I paused, my tone slipping but remaining controlled. I graduated with honors from Cornell University, began my career at Imperial Capital with no family connections or funds, and recently became the youngest senior investment strategist in the firm's history. By objective measures and performance, it is hard to call me a failure. I looked around the table, catching the eye of a few relatives who gave me a respectful nod. Then I turned back to Father. "But in your, Robert Harrison's world, success is never those objective figures. It must meet 3 criteria. It must reflect glory onto you, preserve the Harrison tradition, and strictly follow the vision you set." I built my own position without leveraging the Harrison name. Slowly, I pulled the DNA envelope from my purse, my hand moving delicately as if I had rehearsed this exact moment 1,000 times in my mind. All eyes were on me again, the air tense as if drawn tight. I spent over a year of my income, equivalent to many people's annual salary, buying you a Mercedes, not because you needed it, nor because you deserved it. Father's cool smile faded, replaced by astonishment etched into his crow's feet. I did that because I clung to a childish hope that a grand gesture would bridge the secret divide between us. Tears welled up, but I held them back to punctuate each word I was about to say. But I realized that was an illusion. You never truly included me in the Harrison world. I share no blood ties with this family. I placed the sealed envelope down on the table and met Father's eyes firmly. The DNA results confirmed that fact, and today I end my quest for approval from someone who will never be able to offer it. A moment of stunned silence cleared a path for Mother's tears. Beside me, Grace stepped forward and wrapped me in a warm embrace. Sister-in-law Rebecca pulled back, her face registering discomfort. Father still stood there, his brandy glass trembling as he tried to maintain his composure in the midst of chaos. "Ava," he whispered, his voice choking as if he had dropped his last weapon. I tilted my head to look directly at him. "I have found my freedom, Father. I will no longer live to prove anything to you." With that, I spun around and walked out of the dining room. My footsteps echoed on the polished wood floors, each step a declaration of my freedom, unbound by the Harrison name. I emerged into the garden, the Portland night chill wrapping around me, but my heart felt unusually warm. Out on the lawn, the black Mercedes remained stationary, its presence a silent witness to all the sacrifices and tears. I gently touched the DNA envelope as I closed my eyes for a second, taking in the full sense of liberation. Under the dim garden lights, I knew I had crossed a final threshold, the journey to reclaim my own worth without needing anyone's approval. I retrieved a spare key from my purse, the key to the car once given to me by Father, and pressed the remote unlock button. The soft click sounded like a promise of new beginnings. Sliding into the driver's seat, the leather smelled both fresh and tinged with Father's potent cologne, a fleeting reminder that once he truly owned this gift, though a few minutes ago he had called it mine. Through the windshield, I saw the silhouettes of my relatives, clustered at the dining room window, their hands raised in surprise, their mouths agape. It felt as though the entire family drama I had just upended was frozen in their shocked expressions. I pressed the engine start button. The night silence swallowed the car's purring motor, as though nothing magical had occurred. Only a routine drive, not the moment that ended 32 years of emotional servitude. Outside, I whispered a wordless utterance and clenched my fist, feeling the empty weight of the envelope left behind on the dining table. Taking back the gift Father had given me became a symbolic act of reclaiming my own worth, quietly, without requiring anyone's repayment or gratitude. In the rearview mirror, the Harrison estate receded, its image stretching and blurring like a shattered painting. With each wheel turn, the distance between my heart and their world expanded, dissolving the tether that once bound me. Street lamps glanced across the glossy hood of the Mercedes like a reminder that money could buy appearances but could never substitute for true worth. Worth that should have been invested in me. This choice did not come from a sudden spur of the moment. It was an inevitable crescendo from my subconscious. I turned on the garage door opener. Another click, heralding the harvest of my long-awaited emancipation. Guided by that realization, my spontaneous action transformed into a deliberate decision, a blade that severed the fragile chain binding me. Outside, I gripped the steering wheel, recalling the image of the unopened envelope on the back seat, like a tombstone for the past I had lived. This car ride was no longer about leaving a cramped place. It was about embarking on a journey to build my own agency, unburdened by needing to prove myself to anyone. Under the amber glow of passing streetlights, I let out a long breath and smiled at my reflection. Headlights of oncoming vehicles streaked by, leading me forward into the night, into freedom born of heartache and fresh hope. awaiting every twist of my life's road. The Mercedes glided smoothly through the familiar streets of Beaverton, each turn widening the gap between the girl who had sat at that table 30 minutes ago and the woman I was becoming. As I neared the entrance to the busy Interstate 5, my phone buzzed for the first time, a clear sign that the storm's aftermath was already brewing. My phone screen lit up with Grace Harrison, then Ethan, then Mom, and a string of cousins, digital traces of the chaos I had just caused. I silenced my ringer but left the phone on, partly because I wanted to watch the fallout of my explosion, even though I wasn't ready to face it directly. As I merged onto the interstate heading toward Orlando, streetlights danced across my rearview mirror, briefly revealing my father. He was running onto the road, his face twisted in a rage I had never seen before. His arm shot upward, as if he were shouting, but his cries were swallowed by the roar of my engine. An unmistakable sign that his family dominion had collapsed in that instant. That image engraved itself in my mind, a snapshot of the emotional turning point that had just occurred. The grand narrative of Harrison power shattered because of a few pieces of scientific paper and a moment when I saw through the lie. 30 minutes later, I arrived at a hotel in downtown Orlando, my phone already showing 17 missed calls and 29 text messages, a digital map of the blast I had set off. I set my room key on the nightstand, slipped out of my high heels, and slowly began reading my messages. Grace wrote, "What just happened? What was in that envelope that had you so upset? Call me. Everyone here is in shock." My mother's text was gentler. "Ava, call me when you can." But by the 5th message she was sobbing. "Could the result be wrong? Come home so we can talk about this." Ethan sent just 2 texts, threatening to sue if I did not return the property immediately and retract those horrible accusations. His reaction, and those of the others, surprised no one. They were simply playing their roles in the family theater. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, feeling both physically and emotionally distant from the dinner that evening. At last, the DNA test had confirmed what a part of me had suspected for years. Robert Harrison was not my biological father, and the emotional distance he always maintained originated from the secret he had kept his whole life without ever acknowledging. I had decided to take the test after getting an initial result from a just-for-fun genetics service. At first I was shocked, but once I was certain, I felt a strange sense of clarity regarding the alienation I had felt since childhood. Now that the information was public, the Harrison facade lay in tatters right before my eyes. More than 2 hours later, I had showered and changed into something comfortable from my packed overnight bag, my contingency plan if the reunion became unbearable. When I saw Grace Harrison calling, I answered, needing to hear a family voice to confirm that the earthquake I had triggered was not confined to my own mind. "Ava?" Grace's voice trembled over the phone, breaking for a moment but giving me something to hold on to. Are you okay? Where are you?" I forced a faint smile through the screen. "I'm fine, Grace. Just let Mom know I'm safe. I'll come back when I can." Her voice caught. You did the right thing. Mom says if you need anything, she's here for you." I inhaled deeply, feeling both a void and gratitude. "Thank you, Grace. I love you." We hung up. I set the phone down and stared out the window, cars stretching into the distance, headlights flickering along Interstate 5. I thought about roads I had never traveled, about dreams I had put on hold while immersed in family drama. Now I could rewrite every chapter of my life, no longer bound by bloodlines or unreasonable expectations. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes, letting my mind relax. I pictured the future, a new job in Orlando, no longer living under the Harrison gaze. I would rediscover myself, make new friends, and live by my own standards. A warm sense of freedom spread through my chest. It wasn't simple happiness, but something different, a mix of pain and hope. Driving away from the Harrison legacy for the first time, I realized I had the right to choose my own path, not one laid out by Father. At 11 o'clock, I opened my laptop and pulled up job listings. Positions in Orlando's finance sector scrolled across the screen, including one for financial strategy analyst at a reputable investment firm. I typed a brief message. Please find attached my resume. Ava Harrison. I do not require any benefits other than freedom. Then I clicked send. The final scene was the glow of the screen hinting at a new project, shimmering like a beacon in the dark. I knew life ahead would be full of challenges, but at least now I could choose my own finish line, one no one could distort. I sat by the hotel window as Orlando's lights reflected on the harbor's black water. Phone vibrating again. This time it was Grace Harrison, her voice soft but deeply worried. "Are you okay? Where are you?" Her concern almost made me cry. "I'm safe," I replied tersely, forcing myself to sound firm. "What happened there?" she asked, her breath catching on the line. I heard her exhale. "Everything's a mess, Ava." Father opened the envelope right in front of everyone, held it up for 30 seconds and then started screaming for Mother. Mom just glanced at the result and went pale. They locked themselves in Father's study for 10 minutes, sitting speechless. Then he stormed out looking for you and found the car gone. He's completely unhinged now. Hearing that tightened a knot in my chest, but I kept my tone steady. "What about Mom?" I asked, my voice wavering but controlled. "She locked herself in the bedroom, won't talk to anyone, not even Ethan. Everyone else left quickly, just like I told you. Father is now frantically making calls in his study. Ethan says he'll sue over the car, though that's probably the least important issue." Grace paused and her voice grew deeper. "Ava, is this all real? People are asking questions." I nodded in the darkness. "Yes. I did the test after I realized our DNA didn't match. Robert Harrison is not my biological father." Each word dropped with weight, opening the wound I had carried for years. Grace was silent for a moment and then quietly asked, "Do you know who your real father is?" I shook my head. "This test only confirms he isn't, not who is. But judging by how Mom reacted, I'm guessing he's someone from before she met Dad." Her silence stretched out. Then she whispered, "Do you think Father knew?" That question cut me to the core. I answered firmly, "I know that. He's known for a long time. All the criticisms, all the harsh comparisons, they were never about making me better." I looked out again and saw Orlando's distant lights reflecting on the water, easing part of my pain. "You did the right thing," she said softly from the phone. "I don't want anyone to know we're talking about this, but you need to know I'm here for you. No matter what, Ava, you're still you. I will always love you." Her words were the final thaw to the ice in my heart. I hung up and moved to the window, looking down at the expanse of water. Orlando felt both foreign and familiar, like seeing my reflection in the glass, a place that held my father, who taught me through emotional absence, and the man who had never appeared but now lived inside me through every beat of my DNA. The symmetry between two fathers, one ever present yet absent in his heart, the other secret but bound to me by my genes, left a strange sense of balance. Finally, the universe seemed to offer an explanation for the discord I had carried since childhood. As the clock struck midnight, I received an unexpected text from an unknown number. "If you're reading this, please know I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. My name is Mark Sullivan. I am your biological father. I know it's too late, but if you want, I'll be in Orlando all this week. I hope we can talk." My hands trembled and my heart pounded. Between Grace's call, the family's furious messages, and now this, my life revolved around one truth: I had to find my own worth. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath to steady myself, and then replied, "I received your message. We'll talk later." At that moment, my new journey truly began. Outside, the harbor lights glimmered, a reminder that countless horizons awaited exploration, none of them mapped out by anyone else, not even my biological father. 2 days later, I sat across from Mother in a small cafe far from our old home. She wore a simple dress, her face devoid of the regal Harrison matriarche air. more human, more real than I had ever seen. When the waiter set down our coffee, she got straight to the point. Your father, James Anderson, is an engineer at Caltech. He's smart and kind, but our families felt he wasn't worthy of someone from my lineage. When they discovered we were dating, my parents forbade it. 2 months later, I met your father at a charity fundraiser. He was considered the ideal match by everyone. Mother sighed, her gaze fixed on a point beyond me. Our story was like some old romance. I attended Pomona College, James attended Caltech. We loved each other deeply, but my family forced me to walk away. You were born soon after that. Then your father, Robert Harrison, came into my life deemed perfect by my family. He proposed marriage out of genuine affection for me and because of the business ties his lineage offered. I listened in silence, feeling each word my mother spoke like a drill boring into the past. Your father promised to raise you as his own, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. And I believed he wanted to keep that promise. But from the moment you were born, you bore James's face and his gaze, your very way of asking questions instead of simply obeying. Every time he looked at you, he saw the evidence of someone else's life, living proof of my life before him. Hearing this, I felt both relief and pain flood over me. I thought of decades spent enduring his harsh words and critical stares. Mother explained that he tried, but could never bridge the genetic divide. No matter what achievements I earned, he saw only the traces of someone who was not his biological child. My mother's story unfolded for 3 hours, each memory fitting together in painful detail. She revealed that James had no idea I existed. He moved to California after graduation, built a career with an engineering firm in Irvine, and then got married and fathered 3 children. They are my half-siblings. Mother kept track of his life through alumni newsletters and social media, but never tried to contact him, bound by her promise to father that our secret would be buried, that I would always carry the Harrison name even if I did not share their blood. I listened, placing my palm over my heart, feeling an indescribable sorrow. The loneliness of so many years surged up, mingling with a bitter truth. Yet deep in my heart, I also discovered a flicker of hope. I finally understood the source of both my strength and my pain. I was no longer the quiet little daughter who needed to prove herself. I was a free woman who held her entire story in her hands. 3 hours later, I stepped out of the cafe and discovered it was late afternoon. I walked slowly along the famous brick-lined street in Coral Gables, running my hand along a red brick wall that carried the weight of time. Each step felt like opening a new door for my life. I thought of James Anderson, the father who had never known I existed, and how I would build that relationship on honesty without secrets. Now I faced decisions about my future. Should I seek out James to hear the voice of the man who had given me life, or should I keep this connection at a distance, preserving a fragile peace? At the same time, I had to rebuild my life, no longer overshadowed by the Harrison name, but forging a new path in Orlando, a city brimming with opportunity. As the sun set behind the skyline, I paused and looked up at the rosy sky. Inside me, a rare calm prevailed. The echoes of the past no longer screamed. I closed my eyes, felt my breathing steady, and knew that from this moment on, I would live by my own story, one of pain, love, and eventual liberation. We sipped our 3rd round of coffee when my mother posed the hardest question. "Why did you never stand up for me?" I asked, the pain of decades condensed into one question. I saw how he treated you compared to Ethan and Grace. I witnessed him dismiss every achievement, every effort you made to earn his love. Why did you let that continue for 30 years? The hurt showed clearly on my mother's face, a sadness too deep to disguise and yet more powerful than my anger. "I failed you," she admitted without excuse. "I thought I would tell you the truth about why he could never love you as he did your siblings, but I always felt it wasn't the right time. I was afraid of hurting you, afraid the consequences would be too great." She cast her gaze downward, tears rolling down her cheeks, while I forced myself to stay composed. "There were moments when I wanted to reveal everything," she went on, her voice broken. "But time passed and the words became buried deeper, harder to uncover. I kept telling myself you were strong enough, resilient enough to build an independent life. I never realized that hope was weighing you down more than it helped. We ended our conversation without full resolution, just the beginning of a relationship that would need time and honesty to heal. The next day, another major shift occurred when I received an email from James Anderson, my biological father. His words were careful but warm, expressing shock at learning I existed, asking for time to process it all, and hoping we could meet once he understood the reality. He had a daughter he never knew about. "From your email signature, I see you work in finance in downtown Miami," he wrote. "Coincidentally, I have a business trip to Florida next month. If you're willing, I would love to meet you for coffee." Those plain words felt like a cool breeze over a scorched soul. Respecting me without comparison or judgment opened the possibility of a pure connection, unburdened by the complicated Harrison history. Meanwhile, the professional world continued with its indifferent momentum. Midweek, my boss called to ask about my presentation for a client. "The Robertson account needs you to explain your risk model in person," she said. "They specifically requested you because your reputation is spreading." Feeling appreciated for my own ability, unrelated to family ties, hit me like a revelation I was always worthy. 6 days after the family implosion, my father finally reached out directly through his lawyer. He demanded I return the Mercedes and threatened to sue me for public defamation regarding my claim about my parentage. The cold formality of his reaction contrasted sharply with James's heartfelt email, making it clear exactly what I needed to know about these two men. My father had always valued lineage over virtue, but now I understood that genetics alone are half the story. Character is the true measure of a parent-child relationship. I instructed my lawyer to arrange the car's return and insisted the DNA results could not be classified as defamation. Ethan was completely silent, no surprise there. He stood firm in his father's worldview and his own fear of losing inheritance grounded in bloodline. All the while, Grace called me every day. Our bond deepened through candid conversations about the family dynamics we both witnessed, but dared not share. "He's controlled our story all our lives," she sighed one evening. "He made sisters compete for a love that was never truly fair." I nodded, feeling a surge of empathy. I told her about James' email, my voice trembling with hope. "I will meet him when I feel ready," I said. "I need to figure out how I want that relationship to unfold." Her response was gentle guidance. "Follow your heart. Blood is just the starting point. How he treats you matters more than any document." Professionally, things were demanding. I spent several afternoons meticulously preparing my slides for an international client pitch in downtown Miami. Each slide was carefully crafted, yet in my mind, the bigger question loomed. Could I find my rightful place between these two families? 2 weeks later, I arranged to meet James at a small cafe near Central Park, Florida. Seeing a face and mannerisms reflected from my own felt both strange and profoundly natural, and my heart raced as I entered. "Ava," he said, speaking my name like a gentle ocean breeze. I nodded, gripping my coffee cup. We spoke for more than 3 hours. He recounted his life in Irvine, how he built his engineering firm from scratch, and his pride in his children. I shared the years of enduring father's scolding, the pressure of bearing the Harrison name, and the ache of living in two worlds. He listened silently, tears welling in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I never knew you existed, and I regret not finding you sooner." I took his hand across the table, feeling warmth flood my heart, a glimpse of a new horizon, a father who could now meet his daughter with open honesty. Back in Orlando, I realized my life could never return to its old orbit. I signed up for therapy to unravel the knots of conditional love and fear of failure that had driven every decision I'd made. My career in downtown Miami continued to grow, my influence built on genuine expertise, not the Harrison name. Slowly, I reached out to new friends who didn't know my past, discovering surprisingly peaceful corners of life. One Sunday morning, Grace visited me. We sat in my modest Coconut Grove townhouse, laughing like two carefree children. "This is your new life, right?" she asked, her eyes bright with hope. I'm so proud of you for finding yourself." I nodded and looked out my window at the sunlight filtering through the oak trees. Yes, I've learned to love myself without waiting for anyone's approval. What weighed me down for so long is now the foundation I'll build upon. Our story reached its final pivot at Thanksgiving. I accepted Grace's invitation instead of returning to the Harrison estate, a place once filled with painful memories. When I stepped into her warm South Beach kitchen, the mood was different. Children's laughter, the smell of turkey roasting, and pies baking in the oven. Father had declined the invitation. His absence now inspired pity rather than pain. "Can't change," Grace said softly, as we placed the final garnish on the apple pie. "It's not that he doesn't want to. He can't. He spent his life building his ego on certainties, and your existence challenged every one of them." Her words solidified my resolve. As dinner ended, Mother video called us, her face radiating a warmth of pride. "Ava," she said, "I'm so proud of you, not because of your career or where you live, but because you faced the truth and rebuilt yourself from the fragments. I should have said this long ago. Do you understand?" I had waited 32 years for those words from Father, and now they came unconditionally from Mother, like a healing balm that reached the deepest wounds. As I hung up, I realized the greatest truth of my journey. Family is not defined solely by blood or documents. It is those who see your true self and love you unconditionally, without forcing you into a pre-written role. The Mercedes I had bought in a futile attempt to buy Father's affection was returned and sold. The proceeds became an investment in my future, no longer a testament to failure, but a stepping stone to freedom. More importantly, I reclaimed the energy I had wasted chasing an impossible approval. Now, I poured my time into relationships that build me up, and I pursued work for passion, not validation. The path from that tragic dinner to a new equilibrium was neither straight nor easy. Every day presented a challenge, some steps forward, some backward, but the direction was clear: healing, not withering. Perhaps the most significant milestone wasn't a grand revelation, but quiet Tuesday mornings, waking up without checking if I still deserved to exist, acknowledging my achievements because they were mine, not because I needed to prove my worth. Today, I still meet James in Florida, and I speak openly with Mother about life's twists. Occasionally, I go to Grace's for dinner, laughing with her children. My career in downtown Miami continues smoothly, but now I do it for the joy of creation, not to prove my value. Each morning I wake up with a new sense of freedom, not just the joy of life, but a bittersweet release, knowing I no longer live under the weight of Father's praise. By the end of that eventful March evening, my life had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Every week I attend therapy to untangle my lingering fear of conditional love. Slowly, I learned to recognize my genuine achievements, not to impress anyone, but because they rightfully belong to me. My relationship with Mother has now been rebuilt on a foundation of authenticity. No more forced compliments or artificial perfection. We face each other with hard questions and compassion even when the answers still sting. That's the only way to rebuild trust, filling broken spaces with honest if painful acknowledgement. One crisp autumn day, I met James in a small East Orlando restaurant near Central Park. Seeing my mirrored reflection in his features, both alien and familiar, stirred emotions I could barely name. He recounted his life story, starting an engineering firm in Irvine, building something from nothing. When he brought me a slice of warm apple pie, he looked at me in wonder. "You have Mom's analytical mind, but that passionate spark when you talk about market trends, that's definitely from me." From that moment, our father-daughter bond grew carefully. We didn't rush into excessive displays of affection, but nurtured our connection through lunches and late-night discussions about technology and finance, fields he knew well and I loved. Through him, I discovered aspirations I had never voiced when living under the Harrison roof. The final turning point came at Thanksgiving. I chose to spend it at Grace's home instead of the Harrison mansion, where my painful history once lay buried. Stepping into her South Beach kitchen, I was greeted not by relatives faking smiles but by true warmth. Children playing in the living room, the sweet aroma of roast turkey, and the comforting scent of spiced pumpkin pie. Father's absence no longer stung, it felt like a release. "Can't change," Grace said softly as we arranged the last garnishes. "He doesn't want to. He simply can't. He's spent his life building on certainties, and your very existence threatened them." Her words bolstered my resolve. As we finished our meal, Mother joined us via video call, her face beaming with pride. "Ava," she said, "I'm so proud of you. Not because of your position or address, but because you faced the truth and rebuilt yourself from the fragments. I should have said this long ago. Do you understand? I spent 32 years waiting for those words from Father. Now, Mother gave them unconditionally, like a balm that healed deep wounds. When I closed my laptop, I realized the greatest lesson of my journey. Family isn't only about blood or legal ties, it's about those who see your true self and love you unconditionally, not forcing you into a mold. The Mercedes I bought, hoping to buy Father's love, was sold. The proceeds funded my next chapter, no longer a monument to failure, but a foundation for freedom. More importantly, I reclaimed the energy wasted in a losing battle for approval. Now I invest my time in building relationships that uplift me, and I pursue work I love rather than to prove my worth. The road from that tragic dinner to my new equilibrium was never straight. Each day is a balancing act, sometimes forward, sometimes back, but the direction is healing, not collapse. Perhaps the truest milestone wasn't any grand reveal, but calm Tuesday mornings, when I could wake without checking whether I still deserved to exist, when my accomplishments mattered because they were mine, not because I needed external validation. This Thanksgiving I sat around a simple table with Grace, our children playing at our feet, laughter echoing through the kitchen. And in that moment I recognized that the greatest gift wasn't the turkey or the pie, it was the freedom to love and be loved on my own terms. So I ask you, have you discovered that a true family isn't always defined by blood? Sometimes the people who should love us unconditionally are the very ones who wound us deepest. I'd love to hear how you've built the family you chose, or how you rose up when those who failed to see your value held you back. If my story resonates with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of self-rediscovery, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that their worth doesn't depend on anyone's approval. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes reclaiming your power means letting go of those who were never worthy of it in the first place.